Do you need to get your Dolphins in or out of your lineups with Tua Tagovailoa back? What can you expect from Zach Ertz, the Arizona Cardinal, and will Kadarius Toney still come through even with the return of Sterling Shepard? Plus, the 2021 FFPC main event leaders Danny Mueller and Ron Meyer talk about their first-place team when they hop aboard with us and much more. We've got a great show for you. Farrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by MyFFPC.com, with your hosts Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here's Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott.
To the Quiet Hollers. Remember to check out their music at quiethollers.com. Greetings and salutations to all the Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs, all of you tuning in to listen to this week's edition of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I am your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Farrell Elliott. Farrell, we have a couple of great guests on the show tonight. Two of our buddies, two people that have are very accomplished in the FFPC and the KFFSC. But allow me to brag a little bit at the top of the show, because I was a little bit nervous when I was watching that Monday night game. I didn't have a ton of Ravens and Colts going in my leagues this past week, but of all my managed teams this year, I have 22 managed teams where I got to submit lineups and waivers every week. This past week, 18-4. 18-4 in 20. It was one of the best.
Green in the Balkman column makes me happy. Congratulations!
It was awesome, man.
Buddy.
Thank you so much. I was thrilled. It was much needed. Obviously, we all know you as an FFPC guy understand how hard wins are to come by at the high stakes level. So I was thrilled to see it. I hope we can continue rolling, and quite frankly, I hope we can pick the minds of our guests tonight to try to glean some nuggets, some fantasy nuggets for you and I to make the remainder of our seasons very profitable here, man.
I do too. I expect when knowledge is dispensed from these two, it would be similar to being, probably as close to the chest and as tight as a slot machine at the Gold Strike on Friday night in downtown Las Vegas. So I don't really think... but perhaps if we ask them politely, they will be charitable and share some of their knowledge.
I'm very excited for that. We are going to talk to the 2021 FFPC main event leaders, Danny Mueller and Ron Meyer, roughly in about 12 minutes here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. We're going to talk about how they assembled such a dominant squad, whether you need to keep the fight, whether you need to fight to keep Van Jefferson on your rosters with the bye week gauntlet upon us, with so many injuries, which we'll touch on tonight, that have hit high stakes fantasy owners here in week 6, and whether Ricky Seals-Jones is going to make his managers happy in week 6, plus obviously a ton more topics we're going to hit on. Shout out to the chat room right now. You can post your questions you might have in there. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, the show is at HSFF Hour. I am at Eric Balkman. Danny is at Danny Mueller 1. Ron is at 2Packer. And, of course, you can check out the KFFSC at KFFSC.com. Facebook.com/HSFF Hour is where to reach us. And if you want to give us a call, 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA. HighStakesFantasyFootball@gmail.com is the email box that my best friend and Bryce, that's terrible. my best friend and audio engineer Bryce, and our mutual friend and producer Rob, they will be monitoring that email box. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, all the tweets, all the emails in the fantasy feedback segment coming up later on in the show. All right, so right at the top of the show, I do want to mention this. RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown this week features Biplab Mandel, a guy who has not one, not two, but three teams in the main event in the FFPC right now. Congratulations to him. He's got a couple of teams in the Football Guys Players Championship high up in the standings and dominating the Pros versus Joes competition, as well as numerous FFPC and KFFSC teams. Rotoviz.com/podcast is where to check out my interview with Biplab Mandel. It was a fun one. Went a little long, so if you're looking for good Notorious BIP insight, you're going to get a lot of it in that podcast, rotoviz.com/podcast once again. All right, so Farrell, let's get into it here. Let's go rapid fire on some of these injuries before we get into the Zach Ertz news. Number one, Cliff Kingsbury is COVID positive. He is not coaching against the Browns. Are you changing the way you feel about any of your Cardinals or Browns this week based on that? Me personally, I'm not. If I was rolling out, Hopkins or Edmonds or Connor or Green or any of those guys, I'm rolling them out there regardless of this. How do you feel about the Kingsbury news?
I'm akin to you. I think Coach Kingsbury in this situation, and at least in the
Farrell,
short term.
did I lose you? Are you still there, buddy?
It may be. Can you hear me, Balky? Balky, are you there? I'll call you right back. Eric, are you in the building?
And we lost Farrell again. Okay. So that is the Cardinals news right now as we try to get Farrell Elliott back here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go out to the phone lines right now, and we are going to take a phone call, and hopefully this will be a good guinea pig test here for as we try to get Farrell back. I do believe we have Farrell back right now. Farrell, can you hear me? Are you with us?
Baby, I am, and thank you for that excellent engineering job to get me back on the air. And, as you asked that question, I'll be happy to answer it now, but I was just about ready to say something that not terribly pro about the Arizona Cardinals coach. So I will just table that to say that a new level of attention brought forward to the coaching staff that will be in charge by the players on hand sometimes can be a real positive for a team. And Arizona's clicking on all cylinders. He has prepared them well to play. So, no, I think you should stick with all your Arizona Cardinals.
All right, so now maybe some more concerning news also in the same division with the Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson was placed on injured reserve. No, not a big surprise there with his quote-unquote mallet finger. But Chris Carson with his neck also on injured reserve today, Farrell. He is going to miss the next 3 games. The earliest now he can come back is Week 10. It is the Alex Collins, Travis Homer, and DJ Dallas show in Seattle right now. Obviously, Collins the most attractive guy among those 3 running backs. How concerned are you that with the Seahawks already back 3 games in the NFC West race that Carson may not be back this year?
A miserable situation for Seattle and their fans, a situation where the players that are there to step up are very, very capable, but you're getting such a talent drain that it's hard to cover all of it. Collins has disappointed me before. I've been a good fan of his and a supporter of his, and he played very, very well last week. If he can continue it, that's good. But, yeah, it's a bad football season for people in the Emerald City.
Yeah, and we'll be watching. It sounds like DK Metcalf is going to play this week, so that's very good. But certainly not great if you have Chris Carson in your fantasy league. We don't have to touch on Terry McLaurin. It sounds like he's going to play. It sounds like Josh Jacobs is going to be out there as well. We will get into much more with the injury situations coming up later on in the show, especially with our guests. Ron Meyer, Danny Mueller will be joining us in about 4 minutes here. Let's get into the biggest news of the day. It's a personnel one. The NFL trade bill was churning today between the Arizona Cardinals and the Philadelphia Eagles. Zach Ertz goes from being a bird on the East Coast to a bird on the West Coast, as he is now an Arizona Cardinal. The Cardinals send Tay Gowan and a 2022 fifth-round pick to Philly. Now, according to Adam Schefter, the Cardinals traded for Ertz, quote, with the idea of making him a regular featured part of its offense. And Ertz has told others in the past that Arizona appealed to him. Now, Zach Ertz, 30 years old. We saw him catch a touchdown, including 4 other catches last night on Thursday Night Football against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Historically, Cliff Kingsbury's offenses in Arizona have not used the tight end. However, we did see a lot of Max Williams this year until he had the season-ending knee injury. This is obviously good news for Dallas Goedert, who does not have to contend with Zach Ertz anymore in the Philly offense, Farrell. But you look at Zach Ertz now as the Arizona Cardinal. DeAndre Hopkins is there, Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk, A.J. Green, Chase Edmonds, all viable pass catchers there. How does Zach Ertz figure into the Arizona offense, and how do we use that to our advantage in fantasy football?
Well, you checked all the boxes here, Balky, and yes, I've been a big Zach Ertz fan since the days back with the Niners, and I'm so pleased that he gets this sort of platform to show his skills. I think even at 30 years old, he's one of the best pass-catching tight ends, and I still view him as a slot receiver. There's so many mismatch problems, and you mentioned it. All these guys on Arizona, all this offensive talent will drive a defensive coordinator crazy. You put Zach Ertz into this situation, it's even more of a problem. And, from week to week, guys are going to step up in the Arizona offense. I doubt if we're going to see what we see around other teams where you might get a receiver like Hopkins who is targeted 12, 13, 14 times, because so many players are going to have a role in a game to get open and contribute. Zach Ertz is wonderful for the players, the fantasy players that will manage him on the roster going forward in Arizona. It's wonderful, Goddard, and it's a situation where Philadelphia gets a fifth-round pick in 2022, and I'll tell you something about that draft that's upcoming this spring, Balky. The spring of 2022 will bring an unprecedented number of players into the draft because of the COVID year. And with a fifth-round pick, just with all this number of players, the talent level is going to be hard to separate. And you'll have guys that will walk in off the street as free agents that might be as good as your fifth-round pick. So as far as I'm concerned, they got a rookie cornerback for Zach Ertz. That fifth-round pick is very limited in value.
Let's talk about, as I'm trying to catch up in the chat room conversation, stuff I'm not comfortable in there. It's vaccinations, it's Viagra, a lot of medicine, a lot of drugs conversation flying around in the chat room right now. We will try to get it back to fantasy football here as we await Ron Meyer and Danny Mueller here on the program tonight. Brian Flores, the head coach of the Dolphins, says Tua Tagovailoa is going to start this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars in London. Public service announcement, that starts at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time Sunday. Set your lineup Saturday night or early Sunday morning to make sure you're not caught with your pants down, so to speak, with that game. Joe Shad is on Twitter reporting this. Now, the Jacksonville secondary so far this season, Farrell, allowing almost a 75% completion rate. That's the second highest in the league, almost 13 yards per completion, which is third highest in the NFL right now. This could be good news for Tua Tagovailoa. However, one of his pass catchers will not be Devontae Parker, as he made the trip to London, but he's already been ruled out. So we're looking at Jalen Waddle. Will Fuller is still on IR. You have obviously Mike Gesicki there as well. What are you expecting for, what would you, recommend people who have Waddle, a player like Jalen Waddle, knowing that Parker's out, knowing that Will Fuller is not playing, knowing that Tagovailoa is back? Is he a must flex this week for you?
Yes, Jalen Waddle should be in all lineups. And the quarterback's coming back, despite Jacksonville's issues in the secondary. He's going to need to ease in back to the NFL week-to-week grind. And Tua's perfect receiver for this situation is Waddle. He runs short routes, he's got great hands. He runs with the ball well after he catches it. He'll frustrate any type of the defenders close to the ball, and then he'll have some shots downfield as things work out through the game for him. So, yeah, I really like Waddle's upside in this game, and he's the guy guy that I want to go to. I wouldn't spend a lot of time trying to count on picking up other Dolphins receivers to try to plug and play in the absence of Parker. There's going to be enough offense in the short passing game, and that's what to mitigate the risk of moving the ball down the field with a quarterback that's coming off IR.
I think this would be a good question for one of our guests who I know drafted Jalen Waddle in a ton of leagues this year, and that's Danny Mueller. Let's bring in tonight's guests, ladies and gentlemen. Both are long-time, highly accomplished high-stakes fantasy football players with numerous championships in the FFPC and the KFFSC under their belts. They're looking for their biggest score of their careers to date this year, as they are both in first place in the $4 million FFPC main event, heading into Week 6 with a $500,000 grand prize staring them in the face. Please welcome back onto the program. You follow him on Twitter at DannyMueller1, Danny Mueller, and of course you follow him on Twitter at 2Packer. It's Ron Meyer. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show.
Good to be here.
What
Good
an
to hear you.
excitement.
How you doing, guys?
I'm drinking whiskey out the bottle, not thinking about tomorrow, singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long.
There you go. So 2Packer, very on brand for you tonight. Love hearing that. We get the Kid Rock and the whiskey comment. So, okay, the first thing I'm going to address this to Danny first, because I think this is going to set this interview up nicely. Danny, I want to hear from you how this partnership with 2Packer came to be. Was this something that was born in Louisville? Was this something that was born in Las Vegas? How did this come to be where you guys partnered up this year for this team?
Jump in there, Danny.
You gotta love Blog Talk Radio. This is fantastic, Danny. If you can hear me, give us a call back right now, and we'll put you back on. I heard him briefly. Ron, we'll have you answer this question here. You have told me this story before. Tell the listeners this was something that Danny approached you with, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've known Danny for a few years in Kentucky and Las Vegas. We've hung out quite a bit and stuff, and he approached me and he was interested because, like all people, they want the non-sheeple rankings cheat sheet that Kurt used to win the Kentucky championship a few years ago, and I don't give that out to anybody. So he was trying to get access to this thing. So I talked to him a little bit, and we came to an agreement, and I'm like, I can't give you the cheat sheet, man. What I'd be willing to do is I can draft some teams because I like to win drafts, and then we can settle up the prize winnings afterwards if you're interested. And he jumped out of his chair, had the chance to do this. Plus, the last couple of years, he's extremely afraid of escalators. So in between games and stuff like that, I'll walk him down the escalators and stuff too. So it's a great partnership we got going.
All right, so we got Danny Mueller back right now. Danny, you heard the story of 2Packer, how this partnership came to be. Danny, is that true? Is Ron's story of how this came to be? You just had to have the non-sheeple rankings. You needed somebody to walk you up and down escalators. Is that accurate of how this partnership came to be in the FFPC?
Well, that's true to a great extent. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you're coming through fine.
Okay. Well, I lost my former partner a couple years ago, so I wanted to get some new partners. And I've known Ron for years. I've watched him draft. I've competed against him. I know he's good. So I just asked him if he'd be interested in partnering with me. Now, the way I do partnerships is slightly different or probably greatly different than other people do. Is I let my partner run the league. I let him draft it. I let him make all the lineup decisions. I don't give them any input unless they ask me. I want them to have the freedom to not feel like I'm looking over their shoulder, second-guessing everything they do. I've run a business for 45 years, and that's called delegation, and I'm a strong believer in it. And I think Ron's doing a great job. And, in the past, I had a partner for years, and about the only time he ever asked me to do anything is he was tied up at work. He was a police officer. He'd get on there and say, I've got an inactive player. Would you switch him for some other player? And I'd go on and switch it for him. And so it's just kind of rare. In fact, I really don't even look at scores until late Sunday night or early Monday morning. But Ron texted me last Sunday and said, "It's 200-something points, pretty good." Something to that. So really.
Well, Balky, I think those are both very good and very truthful answers from these two. I would like to weigh in on this question before you get to your line of questioning, because I have watched this much like a fine bourbon age in Kentucky over the years, and I think I owe. And I beam with pride the fact that this is a first-place team in the FFPC, and I am rooting for so many guys from Kentucky that are playing out there. But I feel like I owe an apology to the rest of the field of the FFPC, because I really should have done something to nip this in the bud, because this is an unholy union of too much talent. And it's too late now. It's to make amends to what's been foisted upon the FFPC players that we must deal with. But yeah, guys, congratulations so far. And I feel this is an unholy union and a talent that is emerging that we will all have to do battle with moving forward.
Well, I've been getting a lot of texts and tweets about it and everything, and I kind of feel badly because Ron really deserves all the credit. All I did is select him, and that's it. and looks like I made a smart selection, so I'm very happy for that.
So, okay, let's Danny, I do want to ask you this, and we're going to get into Ron's construction of the team here shortly. But let's talk about the Atlanta running back situation. It seems that, and I know Ron had drafted Mike Davis in this league, and two-packer, feel free to weigh in on this when Danny's done. But with Cordero Patterson sort of taking the lead role in the Falcons' backfield, have you guys found yourself being extra vigilant on the waiver wire, Ron, especially with this team, in order to add some running back depth for any of your leagues where you found yourself as Mike Davis as your number 3 running back? Danny, go ahead, weigh in on this, and then Meyer, feel free to chime in.
Well, I think I might have been a little ahead of the curve with Cordero, because I started picking him up in either the second or third week, and I put a lot of strong bids on him, and I've got a lot of it in a lot of my teams, and I've been very happy with it. When we was in Vegas, I really couldn't see that game very well, so I really didn't know too much about it, but I saw him the second week, and just looking at him, I said, this guy's special. This coach has figured out how to use this guy, and he's going to get every ounce of talent out of him. And I just put in some pretty strong bids and picked him up in a lot of leagues. And I'm really sick about it this week because I really need him this week, but he's on bye.
Yeah, such is life, really, when it comes to it. Ron, I think when I saw your bidding budget on this team, you used about 60 to 70% of the funds. Have those been on sort of lottery ticket running backs? Because I know you drafted a few on this team, and you do have some potential. I think Alex Collins is on this team. You have David Johnson. So there are some guys out there, but are you still looking to acquire more on a week-by-week basis?
There's not really much out there. I guess there's a couple of guys that I would consider as lottery ticket upsides if some main guys get hurt. And I guess you'll know more of who that is after I pick them up, because I don't want to really say it right now. But for the most part, I put all my eggs in a basket on this one right away. Set the sack on the table at draft day with taking Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones first and second overall. It was a ballsy move. They both have a week 13 bye week, which is the first week of the league playoffs, which I knew going into it as well, but that didn't scare me. Little tidbit that I talked to our good friends of the show, Darren Fantasy Mojo. Do you know how many teams in the main event have the combo of Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones?
Less than 5%. I give up.
8. So
oh, wow.
me and 7 other people are members of the non-Sheeple family in the main event.
Well, so guys, on Patterson, he had the first game against Philly, a good game against Tampa. I think the Giants is when he blew up against the football club in week 4. Did you guys go all in week 1? Did you have to see it more than once, or were you sold on him from week 1?
I'm not a big blow my wad week 1 kind of guy. I save that for the Dave Hubbards of the world. I usually kind of go with I'm not as successful as him and haven't won a national contest before, but I usually kind of only put a little bit out there, and then as the weeks progress, then I get a little more aggressive in the slot. But kind of like Danny, or like weeks 2 and 3, I did start picking up more shares of Magic Cord for sure to have on my team.
Good for you guys. Well, Balky and I talked about something. Sometimes you get a little lucky in that. I mean, Zach Ertz was a draft pick that you could get at bargain double-digit numbers, 13th, 14th round, if I recall, and it now he changes direction. I'm a little bullish on it with this move to Arizona. I'm bullish on Goddard remaining at Philadelphia. You guys have Ertz. What can you say about your expectations moving forward?
Danny, you alive? Do you like him?
Yeah. Well, I certainly have some shares, and I think I started him in a couple of leagues last night. I'm curious if we're going to get double points if he starts at Arizona. But
you won't. The NFL will not let him play on
it's
Sundays. So we'll quaff that. We'll quash that right now.
But certainly it sounds like a good deal. I mean, Max Williams is producing, which is kind of unusual. Cliff Kingsbury has coached at Texas Tech for years and seen a lot of his teams, and he never had a tight end at all. So I've never thought he'd be able to use a tight end, but looks like he's starting to figure it out.
Coach finally figured out he's in the NFL now.
Yeah.
That only took a few years, for sure.
And certainly Zach is more talented than Williams.
No question. Even at this age, he's more talented. So I'm definitely in agreement with you there too, Danny. Let me pose this to you, because this is something I've been talking about with the RotoViz lowdown guys over the last couple of weeks. I've been talking about on this show with Farrell and some of our previous guests. And it's normally just been Allen Robinson, but I'm going to expand it to Odell Beckham, given how Donovan Peoples-Jones, quite frankly, outsnapped him, and it wasn't close this past week. And Beckham just cannot get involved in that offense. Now that we know what these guys have done in the first 5 weeks of the season, Danny, is Beckham, is Robinson, are these guys on your bench going forward, and you're fully willing to leave them there until they have a breakout game, and then you're willing to look at starting them again? How are you treating Beckham and Robinson on the teams you have them on?
Beckham every year. I drafted him a lot on his last 2 years in New York, and got hurt, didn't play. I drafted him a lot. I drank the Kool-Aid when he went to Cleveland, and he didn't do anything the first year. And in the second year, he didn't do anything. And I said, I'm never going to draft Odell Beckham again. I'm never going to drink the Kool-Aid again. And guess what I did? I drank the Kool-Aid again.
Oh.
And when the first week, he didn't play, and I was sitting there in Vegas with all the guys watching the games, and I'm going through my phone, moving him off my rosters. I ran through my leagues today, and there was a couple of places I had to start him, and I don't like it. I'd rather see him do it as opposed to having faith in him. And Allen Robinson has been a big disappointment. I didn't have as much exposure to him as I did Odell, and I don't think I've started him anywhere this weekend, at least so far. I don't know what to think about that situation. So I thought he was quarterback-proof, but I guess he's not.
He's not. No, you're right. And Dave the Dizzle Gerzak chiming in the chat right now. ODB, the NFL player, is as dead as ODB, the rapper. Now, I know that's
my
a little that's a little bit offensive. We're always walking the line on this show. But I think he makes a valid point. Point. It's tough. And, as fantasy owners, too, it's like, well, I mean, even if he comes through for you in a given week, did you start him that week? Is 1 week enough for him to break out to make you feel like you could start him the next week? I don't know. I mean, there's a ton of red flags with him right now. I don't know what you can get for him in Dynasty either, for those of us who play Dynasty. It's a really difficult situation to unpack. Farrell, another difficult situation to unpack is what the Bears are going to do in the backfield without Damian Williams.
And there's a player that is very much alive, a rookie player, Khalil Herbert. And, guys, this – when I start drafting in February, March, the best ball slim competition, man, they were a blast. And that's where I have this player. Because when you get around to main event time, the football guys' time, you say, wow, I really like that player. But how can he ever play? How can he ever see the field? And here we are in week 6, and he's the starting back for the Bears. Now, I tell you what I like about him. He's smart. He was smart enough to leave Kansas, go to Virginia Tech. So he's smart off the field. He's smart on the field. He's patient. He waits for his runs. Physically, he reminds me a little bit of Cam Akers. He runs low to the ground. I think possibly a place to give pause if you have this player rostered and you're going to start him this week is that in the passing game. In college, he never really did it. But when he did do it, when he did catch balls, he seemed to bust some of them. He had a lot of big numbers. Show smarts, physical, low-to-the-ground runner, has burst that is noticeable and a lot of twitch. I think that's perfect for a running back. It depends on if he gets in the end zone. Guys, are you starting him anywhere?
Who's that? I don't even know that guy's name.
I believe that Two-Packer might be giving us a little bit of that Wisconsin shake there, Balky.
Well, Farrell, he did say he didn't want to reveal certain flyer running backs that may or may not be on the waiver wire, which I don't think – I think he's – I'd have to check the mojo on this. I think he's rostered in most leagues right now. I told you
we'd have a hard time getting intel out of these guys. I told you that. So anyone can read between the lines there on that reply from one Two-Packer Ron Meyer.
Well, Khalil Herbert – I've seen film of him during the I call it dynasty season, where we're doing rookie drafts.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked him a lot, and I thought he's a really good, talented running back. And I noticed he got drafted by Chicago, and I know he's number 3 in the pecking order. But when Montgomery went down, there was a few. I actually had Damian Williams. I drafted him pretty often. But Khalil Herbert obviously was available in every league, and I put in pretty strong bids, and I got a lot of him, and I'm really liking it this week, and I've got him in some of my lineups, but I'm holding my breath and hoping he does okay against the Rams. But he is a talented running back, and it was surprising they gave him a lot of carries last week.
Yeah.
So
they gave him a ton.
The volume is there.
The volume is there. No question there whatsoever. I do want to let's talk about last night's game briefly. We're joined, by the way, by the 2021 FFPC main event leaders, Danny Mueller and Ron Meyer on the show tonight. Antonio Brown was obviously awesome last night. I think he had like 9 for 91 plus a touchdown. So you look at this, Meyer, do fantasy owners just need to keep him in now every week without thinking about it? Is he a set it and forget it? Even though Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were drafted well ahead of him at the same position in FFPC main event drafts. By the way, Khalil Herbert owned in 96% of main events right now. Shout out to Darren Armani from FantasyMojo.com for that knowledge. But Antonio Brown, Meyer, is he a must start every single week right now?
If I had Evans and Godwin on my team, I would still start Antonio Brown with the usage that he's getting.
That's the Meyer stat.
Yeah.
Well, Antonio Brown was pretty much an auto draft pick for me during the drafts, and I think in the Kentucky leagues I've got him on every single team, and I've been starting him every week. And I do have him on. I have him on a few teams with Evans, and I was really disappointed in Evans last night, but I was really thrilled with Antonio Brown. So I'm definitely an Antonio Brown fan.
Yeah, and I am too. And Danny, you know what's interesting about that? I just checked my Kentucky teams, and I felt like I had Antonio Brown in a good number of them. You and I must have drafted in a lot of leagues. I only have him in 2 leagues, and I feel like I targeted him in a bunch of them. This is so frustrating to see that, I've been rooting for him every week as if I have him in all these spots. I only have him in 2 leagues. So annoying, so frustrating. All right, let's move on here. Farrell's got a question for you, Ron, about Alexander Mattison and how you're handling him in your first place main event team this week.
And Danny, and I appreciate your honest answer. We now move to Ron, and we have to take this answer with but two-packer. It's Dalvin
Ron
Cook.
Meyer's
Dalvin Cook, the number 2 pick. Oh my God. We got to give some context of that team name, Balky. But Dalvin Cook,
we will.
I did my duty when I had the number 2 spot. I picked Dalvin Cook just exactly like I was supposed to. I did not do my duty as I did not handcuff him. And so what do you do with this player? Should I just run him out there and start him no matter what?
I'm really kind of frustrated with this. I'm a big Florida State Seminoles fan. Dalvin Cook, I love him, even with him being on the Vikings, but I really wish they would just sit his ass down for a couple weeks and make sure he's 100% healthy to go the rest of the year. He could go off this week, and I could also see him play 2 snaps, tweaks his ankle, and then he's done for the rest of the game as well. Really on this team, based off of where we are at already in first, we don't have to try to chase points to move up the system. So to kind of play it safe, I'm just going to throw Mattison on the bench this week, and I'm going to put that scrub Brandon Cooks back into the starting lineup and hope his quarterback can target him, a dozen times.
Yeah, and that was kind of an honest answer, but he threw us Brandon Cooks just people weren't paying attention, a little confusion right at the end. I like that, two-packer. You're very smooth.
Well, and I can't remember if we definitely were not talking about this on this. I think I talked with FipLab about this. How frustrating was it to see Davis Mills look like Joe Montana out there and Brandon Cooks not be the beneficiary of that? But I think that part of the reason is, and we talk about this all the time, is Bill Belichick tries to take out your best offensive weapon when he goes up against you. And the best offensive weapon, no question, for Houston was Brandon Cooks. And that's why we saw Chris Conley and other receivers you will never hear from again with career days. So I feel like, despite Cooks seemingly coming back, which, by the way, the Vikings are on a bye, I believe, next week. So Cooks will get the week off next week regardless. Even though you probably won't be able to play Madison this week, Ron, Brandon Cooks is a nice little consolation prize. So congratulations on that. It's all about building depth, and you guys certainly did that here with this squad. All right, let's pitch. Let's go with Ron. Why don't you take this question? It's from Dale in Boston. He writes, is Van Jefferson worth keeping around on my roster? I'm going to have some bye week issues the next couple of weeks. Congrats, guys. That is Dale in Boston. So, Ron, you look at Van Jefferson right now. He's obviously behind Cooper Kupp, obviously behind Robert Woods. But you can make the case that if either one of those guys goes down, Van Jefferson could be a big beneficiary of it. The question is, when you're faced with bye week issues over the next month and a half, whatever it is, how hard do you have to work to keep Van Jefferson on your roster?
I think he's definitely worthwhile keeping. He's one of the players when I was drafting this year I looked at as being a free square that had tremendous upside if one of the two guys go down. It's a great offense. Stafford is there. He's definitely a huge upgrade over Goff. So I was really targeting Jefferson at the end of the draft for sure for him, and I think he's worthwhile keeping around. Really, at this point in the season, you know, there's only so many guys that you can pick up on the waiver wire. So why would you want to drop a guy that, if he can get the usage, he's going to produce, and he's definitely worth keeping in my book.
One more email here. I'm
agree.
going to throw this one. Danny, let me ask you this one, because this is pertinent for FFPC players for sure. Joe in Syracuse, New York writes, what should my expectations be for David Njoku going forward now that Jarvis Landry is going to be back? Joe, thank you for listening. Thank you for the email. This is interesting because obviously FFPC, tight end premium, they're always trying to get that next big thing at tight end. David Njoku is obviously a pedigreed guy, but you do have Jarvis Landry, who's probably running a lot of the same routes as Njoku. You look at what your expectations would be, Danny, for him. I don't know how crazy you went for him on the waiver wire, but what about David Njoku with Cleveland for the remainder of the season, or at least the next several weeks?
I don't feel too good about it. I mean, he's definitely a talented player. Just we keep waiting for him to do something, and finally he did something the other week and made a long touchdown. But my gosh, they're throwing to 3 tight ends. So who knows which? It's like playing whack-a-mole. Which one do you pick, and which one's going to do something? So,
and you know, Balky,
yes,
I'm sorry, Danny. Go ahead.
I did put in some claims for him, but he wasn't my first spot. The first in order. He was second or third down, and I landed the first guy that I wanted. So let's see. We'll see. I've noticed some other high-stakes players have been drafting him, so maybe they know a lot more than I do. So
hey, Balky, I don't believe Danny fully backs the idea of the quarterback at Cleveland either. I don't think he's a fan. I don't think he's ever really been a fan of the Browns quarterback. You know, I just don't think it just never has happened, and that's part of the reason he's down on Njoku and really doesn't want to talk to you about Landry either.
Yeah, and I think if and Danny, feel free to disagree with us if you would. As far as quarterbacks go, you're more of a Mason Rudolph type guy rather than Baker Mayfield, right? I mean, that's your guy, right?
No.
Yeah, no. Danny is a Steeler through and through.
Baker's just a game manager anymore. They're just running the ball. He just really hasn't done as well in the pros as he did in college. It's a mystery. So I'll take
Danny, what do you think Baker's going to do? What do you think Baker's going to do this week now with Chubb being out? You think they're going to start slinging the rock a lot more with Hunt in the backfield?
Well, it's also going to be interesting. I hear they're going to have high winds too, and bad weather and cold weather and windy. So that game is kind of hard to call right now. Now, I do know in Oklahoma we have a lot of winds, and Baker always threw well in the winds, except for he couldn't throw in against a 50-mile-an-hour wind in one game. But we'll see.
Currently, as I look at that game, which kicks off at 4:05 Eastern on Sunday, the undefeated Arizona Cardinals rolling into basically 3-2 Cleveland Browns. Total in that open at 53. It's now down to 48.5. Browns are actually a 3.5-point favorite in that game. This despite not having the services of one Nick Chubb, Odell Beckham Jr. being an afterthought, and then Arizona not having the services of their head coach / offensive coordinator and their quarterback's coach / offensive coordinator. So there's a lot to it's like Danny said, that's a hard game to sort of handicap and know who to start and who to bench in there going forward. It's a tough question to answer, Farrell, but perhaps not as tough as the question you have for Danny and Ron here.
Oh, guys, I love it. Danny, we're going to go with you first, and then, Ron, you're going to take us home because we got to know this. And, just to remind the listeners, you can trust what Danny says. Take what Ron says with a grain of salt. There's certain retired players that he might advise you to pick up or play. But, Danny, first-round draft picks, second-round draft picks, players say, you know what, I got to play him. I spent all this draft capital on him. Is there a player that you will not start or other players should not start just this week, despite where you might have drafted him, despite the draft capital you paid on him? And then will you please give us a sleeper, a guy that only you have a real feel for? And we've talked about a couple of them. Van Jefferson's one of my favorite sleepers. But nevertheless, can you give us a sleeper too? Danny, you go first, and then we'll see what two-packer we'll try to pull the wool over our eyes with.
Well, let's have some fun with this. How about Derrick Henry?
Wow!
Cut him off. He's out.
Well, okay. You guys aren't gonna play Henry this weekend, huh? Yeah. Okay.
Well, I just thought.
Danny, let's hear the philosophy behind this one.
Well, they're going up against the Bills' defense, and we've got the Bills' defense. We need our Bills' defense to score a lot of points, and
that's that prairie wisdom for you right there, guys.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. I get it. I'm on board. I don't think I could do it, but I'm on board.
Well, who's that sleeper, Danny? Since you surprised us here, you got to have a whale of a sleeper.
Does it have to be somebody that I have on one of my teams?
No, because we're not hearing about those players anyway.
Well, a player I'm wishing I had on a team is J.D. Mckissick. That guy is looking good. If I had him, I'd definitely be starting him. And I tell you, we got so many injuries and so many variances and everything. It's sometimes tough to cobble a lineup. Period. Getting truthful, I don't know if there's anybody in the first or second round that I wouldn't start just because I need to. Even if they project to have a bad game, and actually most of them do have projections for good games, except for the ones that aren't playing. I have been puzzled, and with the situation of the weather in Cleveland kind of bothers me. I've been really wanting to start Rondell Moore this week. I just have a feeling that he's going to do good. And I have him on several teams, but I'm fearful of that situation down there. And the coach coming down with COVID doesn't help matters much. So I'll let Ron chime in now. So I've had
Rondo, what do you got for us?
Well, obviously, Danny started drinking again when he's picking the Derrick Henry not to start. Because I am a firm believer of if you're going to spend a first or second round pick, and you're picking sexy picks, so we're not talking stones, you should be starting them every week regardless of matchup. Now, if you're one of those super hyped people that follow, the guy that's supposed to be good, like a CH or a Miles Sanders last year in the first round, yeah, I can see benching their butts. But otherwise, a first or a second round pick, I really do not, really have a guy that I would say that you would want to put on your bench this week. So I'm going to punt that one, so I don't have one for you. So my advice is to not do that. My sleeper guy that I think is going to do well this week is I'm going to go with Mecole Hardman against the Redskins or the Washington football team. Is the guy who I think has a shot. If you need a flex 2 spot with bye weeks right here, he's definitely worth bringing out there. I don't know the total story on Tyreek, if he's how healthy he's going to be this week, so I think he's worth a shot because Washington definitely can give up some yards and points.
Okay,
that's beautiful.
So,
thank you, Ron.
It is beautiful if he's telling the truth, Farrell. And this is what we need to get back to. Okay, all right. Well, let me tell you a time where he didn't tell the truth. And this was going back in Kentucky, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. I think I was drafting, Ron, you can maybe remember this too. I was drafting either 10th or 11th, and you were 12th. And we took the round 8 break. And I was talking to you, and I was talking to, I think, our good buddy and former Kentucky overall main event champ, Kurt Awe, about what I was going to do when it came back into round 9. Now, I think I had a hole. This is where I can't remember. I either had a hole at running back or I had the starting running back for the Rams, and I wanted to grab Steven Jackson coming back. And no, like Ron and the other guy drafting 11th, or if it was me drafting 11th, I was pretty confident I was going to go.
You were 11th, I was in 12th. Yeah.
Okay, so
I already had 4 running backs already.
That's what was, so you had 4 running. So I was pretty confident I was going to get him. I even kind of poked your picture brand, and you were talking about this receiver, this tight end, and I'm like, okay, well, clearly Ron is not going after Steven Jackson. So I was all ready when we came back from break to draft Steven Jackson on my team and move forward. And then we start up again, and Ron's first up to act, and who does he take? I'll take running back Steven Jackson. What? How does that work? What happened? Like, as your number 5 running back, after telling me you're going to take a receiver, a tight end, or a quarterback, for God's sake, I don't know what it was. And from then on, now it's unfortunate that your last name rhymes with liar, but from then on, Ron Meyer as a liar was a perfect fantasy football team for you, for me, really anybody who plays in the KFFSC or the FFPC. That's the way I remember it, Ron.
Yeah, right away after I picked that guy, you went on full tilt, jumped out of your seat, slammed your pen down, and screams as loud as he can in the ballroom. You're a liar.
I did not react. Yeah, I did not.
Yes,
you
did. I thought you had a hot foot, Balky. I thought somebody had given you a hot foot when you jumped up.
That was
really did.
That was. I was not proud of my behavior. I did not handle it well. And I learned from the experience.
Fantastic.
And if there is ever a time, Farrell, that I am on the turn with one Ron Meyer, if he's at the 11 or the 2 and I'm at the 1 or the 12, I will indeed go out of my way to train wreck my team to make sure I take care of whoever he was going to take as it comes back. Hasn't happened yet, but I'm plotting my way. I am plotting my way to doing that going forward. Kidding aside, I do want to thank our guest tonight, Danny Mueller, who you can follow on Twitter at DannyMueller1, Ron Meyer, who you can follow on Twitter at 2Packer. They are the co-leaders in the FFPC main event for $500,000 as we head into Week 6. Gentlemen, you're already off to a good start with your Buccaneers last night. Ron, I do want to let you know I am unavailable for the soup walk in downtown Appleton tomorrow. My wife is going out of town, and I am on kid duty all day, so I cannot make the soup walk. You're going to have to pound all that chowder and chicken noodle without me.
I'll bring Grace over to watch your kids. It'll turn out okay.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm in. All right, I'm in. Perfect. Guys, thank you so much. Good luck in Week 6. I certainly appreciate you hopping aboard tonight, fellas.
Good talking to you guys.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Good talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Danny Mueller, ladies and gentlemen, and, of course, the venerable Ron Meyer at DannyMueller1 at 2Packer. Did we learn anything, Farrell? I think we learned a few things there.
We learned that they shot a significant smoke screen at us. I don't, first of all, believe that they're not co-conspirators in all moves with the team lineup. And Danny is the salt of the earth, but I don't believe he can risk not getting on resist not getting on the phone with Ron Meyer and talking a little football as we move forward. I take him at his word for what he's done so far, but I think that plan of management will be ceded to a little bit of brotherly working together towards this championship moving forward.
That's the phone call I want to get, though, on Sunday night when Danny said he doesn't check scores till late Sunday night or Monday or Tuesday or whatever. You get a phone call from your co-manager knowing that you're already in second place in the FFPC main event, and he calls up and says, hey, we're at 200 plus. We still got Mark Andrews in the Bills defense yet. I mean, that is a great phone. They were up. I think they were up. Giuseppe Leontonio was first the last couple of weeks. He slipped to second. I think they had, coming into Week 6, they have a 50-point lead thanks to that 271 or 272, 275, whatever they put up this past week. So they are looking really good as far as the regular season points title goes at a minimum. Could be even bigger things. Speaking of bigger things, let's go ahead and answer as many emails as we can here, Farrell.
Okay.
Neil in Albuquerque writes, Dear Balky and Farrell, with Barkley not playing this week, would you start Devontae Booker over Melvin Gordon? Good luck in week 6. That is Neil in Albuquerque. So I believe Melvin Gordon is officially listed as questionable for this game, and it sounds, at least everything I've been reading, it sounds like he is going to go. He was limited in practice yesterday and today, but that was the case the last couple of weeks, and he's it sounds like he's going to go. So, Farrell, Devontae Booker is probably going to be the man for New York this week with no Saquon Barkley. Would you play Booker over Gordon this week?
It's a tough question because it's not unusual for a player like Gordon to take a few days off from practice. He may be on the injury report, or he may just be resting. He's made a fortune in his career of abusing the Raiders, and I expect that to continue given the opportunity to play. If you have Booker, you either picked him up on waiver wires or you drafted him as a one true handcuff for this situation. But now, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the LA Rams with the Giants this weekend?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, that Rams defense is a stout one. And game script, as the game develops and the plays are called, may put the ball in the air in the hands of Tony and some of these short receivers. We have Sterling Shepard returning to the lineup, I think, this week. So, I'm going to lean towards Gordon here, who still has the majority share of the snaps on this offense. It's about 55 to 45. A good friend provided me with that information this week, and Melvin Gordon is still the man in Denver, and I think that's who I'm going with.
Javonte Williams will have his time in Denver. That time is not yet. I do believe Melvin Gordon is still the guy there. And you mentioned it, torched the Raiders, not only with the Broncos, but when he was with the Chargers as well. So I think history's any guide, you're with Gordon here, and that's what I would roll with. You mentioned Kadarius Toney. This next email we have from Taylor in San Jose, Farrell, mentions Kadarius Toney. He writes, hey, guys, should I temper expectations for Kadarius Toney with Sterling Shepard back this week? I could start Darnell Mooney over him against the Pack secondary without Alexander. Taylor, appreciate you listening. Appreciate you emailing. Let's try to help him out, Farrell. Would you start Kadarius Toney over Darnell Mooney this week?
Giants quarterback is going to be challenged playing the Los Angeles Rams, but to answer that challenge, you got to get the ball in the hands of playmakers in a short passing game. That's why Shepard and Toney should do very, very well in this game. And I think the point spread on this is like 10.5 for the Rams. So you assume the Giants are going to have to be all hands on deck. They have to move the ball in the passing game. I don't expect them to run well against the Rams. And while the quarterback in New York may be challenged, the quarterback in Chicago at times, with all the problems he's dealing with, the rookie running back in the backfield, the rookie quarterback, it's just a situation for Mooney that the ball is inconsistently coming at him, and sometimes I think when I watched him pass him from fields that he couldn't hit Lake Michigan from the shore. So I'm going to go here with Toney.
I am of the opinion that Justin Fields will be targeting Allen Robinson quite a bit this week because of the lack of Jair Alexander. The rookie Eric Stokes will probably draw the Allen Robinson defensive assignment. That's a battle that Allen Robinson should win, definitely can and should win. So I like him this week, not so much Mooney. Daniel Jones has already been cleared to play against the Rams. And you mentioned game script, Farrell. I think the game script favors players like Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney, and that's why I will agree with you and say Toney is the guy to start over Darnell Mooney this week. Hopefully that helps you out. Taylor in San Jose. Cody in Las Vegas. Is Seals Jones going to do it 2 weeks in a row? Would you start him over Jared Cook? Thanks so much. That is Cody in Las Vegas. So you look at the matchups here this week for these tight ends. You have Jared Cook this week going up against the Baltimore Ravens on the East Coast. He goes on the road. Then you have Seals Jones, who stays at home, but he faces the Chiefs. I saw a stat this week, and I'm terribly sorry I can't cite give the credit to who pointed this out on Twitter. The record for highest yards per play in NFL history was the Greatest Show on Turf, the Kurt Warner, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, Marshall Faulk Rams back in the day. They averaged 7 yards a play. Currently, the Chiefs' defense on the season is averaging giving up 7.1 yards per play. And I'll tell you this, they haven't been going up against the Greatest Show on Turf every single week. They've been going up against a lot worse teams than that. So I am of the opinion that Taylor Heineke, and we'll get to him in a second, has a pretty good game against Kansas City, probably a shootout game. And I like Seals Jones this week. You know, the Washington receiver room is really banged up. Terry McLaurin popping up on the injury report today. They're hoping he goes. Man, if he can't go, Seals Jones is going to get all he can handle in this game, Farrell.
I agree with you 100%. Now, let's look at Jared Cook. Jared Cook is a player that fantasy managers have relied on for years. And Jared Cook is in the same situation. You can imagine a Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert game where whoever has the ball last is going to win. And it's we look at this matchup. Baltimore is really crippled in pass coverage. They're a big mess. I don't think you can go wrong with these players. And this being an FFPC team, I would reevaluate my lineup and see if you might be able to get both these players in your lineup at the sacrifice of your least attractive flex position player. So that would be to the questioner. That would be my response.
I actually agree with you on that. I had not thought about that. But, yeah, with the FFPC being able to flex out 2 players, you could flex out 2 tight ends if you want and start 3 of them. And if you have Seals Jones and Jared Cook, I think you got to find a way to get them both into your FFPC starting lineup this week. Final email we have, and I teased this earlier, John in Whiteville, North Carolina. I picked up Taylor Heineke last week, guys. Is he the right play over Ryan Tannehill this weekend? Thank you for the email, John. Farrell, I drafted Tannehill, I think 1 or 2 leagues, and he's basically been my own quarterback. And I've been a little nonplussed with his performance so far this season. Now, he does get back, seemingly, Julio Jones and A.J. Brown this week. That will certainly help him out. But Taylor Heineke, man, I mean, I don't know if it's game script. I don't know if it's the Washington defense not playing up to snuff so far. But he continues to put up numbers. And, yeah, I actually would start Heineke over Ryan Tannehill this week. Do you agree, sir?
You know, an easy choice, and Heineke could go over a lot of quarterbacks this week. You know, he's in a shootout, and Heineke reminds me of the way he plays. He's like the gunman showing up with a 6-shooter, hanging low, ready to shoot somebody. You take Ryan Tannehill, he impresses me as the city slicker getting off the stagecoach. This is a guy that is going to be he's so run dependent at Tennessee. And those runs are not coming anywhere near the goal line. What Tannehill used to increase his fantasy scoring last year was those touchdown runs, and it's not present this year. So I would very much. I think it's an easy decision, Taylor Heineke this week in front of Tannehill.
An easy decision is listening and heeding the advice of the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship Commissioner, one Farrell Elliott. Follow him on Twitter at @JFarrellElliott. Check out the KFFSC at KFFSC.com. Farrell, well, fun episode tonight. I mean, they're always fun with you for sure. Certainly appreciate you carving out some time to co-host this show with me tonight. We will do it again next Friday, my friend, and good luck to you in Week 6.
Thank you, Balky. See you next week.
Farrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, the co-host of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, hopping aboard. What a tremendously good job he does each and every week on this program. I want to not only thank Farrell, but I want to thank Danny Mueller, Ron Meyer, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you for listening to the program tonight. Remember to go to rotoviz.com/podcast or anywhere you get podcasts to check out the latest edition of the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown featuring Biplab Mandel, guy who's also enjoying a lot of FFPC main event success with 3 teams in the top 40 as we head into Week 6. Farrell and I will be back live next Friday night at 10/9 Central with another great high stakes guest. I hope you all enjoy Week 6. Remember to get those lineups in early. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by My FFPC.com. It was broadcast live and heard around the world. Balky and Farrell will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Couple of notes, and I know I touched on it a little bit earlier, but remember, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time is when the Dolphins and Jags get it on in jolly old London town this week. So get those lineups in either Saturday night or Sunday morning so you're not left out in the cold on that. As well as I want to thank Frederick the Younger, who, and I don't give him enough, I give him short shrift on this show every single week. Frederick the Younger does our outro music on this program. Check out their music anywhere you get music, and of course, FrederickTheYounger.com. Thanks to everybody for listening. I hope you have a great week 6, and we will talk with you again next Friday, 10/9 Central.